What's happening? Thanks for joining me on this Wednesday morning. It is much appreciated as always. We will get to the Bees later on in that big win last night down in Florida, but we start with the Patriots. And I must say at the beginning of this podcast, mea culpa, mea culpa. Mea culpa from yesterday. I saw an aggregator's tweet about the schedule, which was later deleted. And it was saying that the schedule would be released this morning. Obviously, the schedule will be released later on at 8 p.m. tonight. So, I thought they might give local markets time to talk about the schedule of each team before it was released across the country on primetime television, but that's a brain fart by me. So the schedule talk will be tomorrow. My apologies, my mea culpa. So instead of talking about the schedule today, I figured we'd look at the offense. Look at the offense today, schedule tomorrow, and probably the defense on Friday. I want to reset the depth chart for this football team. Obviously, moves can still happen. We know that. Trades can still happen. June 1st cuts will happen. There will be veteran players that become available that might be very desirable for the Patriots, given their position, their situation, etc. So moves can happen. They're still not going to kick the football off until another, 3.5 months from now. So we still have lots of time to build this roster, construct this football team, and really kind of structure things depth chart wise to the best of their ability to be ready by week 1. So we understand that. But looking at the depth chart right now is what we're going to do. And I'm going to tell you how I would set this depth chart up for week 1 if we were going to start the season next week. That's what this exercise is going to be. We'll look at some of the weaknesses. We will look at some of the strengths. And we'll start with the offense because there's been so much turnover offensively for this football team. You look at the defense, a lot of people coming back. Offensively, we knew there were so many holes on that side of the ball when the 2023 season ended. It was only a matter of time before new blood was thrown in there. And that's what's happened over the past couple of months. This was a team that walked in to the offseason needing offensive line help, having really no tight end on the roster outside of Michael Petway. They needed running back depth. They needed wide receivers. I mean, they pretty much needed almost everything. They needed a quarterback, if not 2 or 3. So now we look at this offensive roster and we see how it is set up about a month or so before we get to mandatory minicamp. Let's start with quarterback. Jacoby Brissett, I think, is going to be your QB1 to start week 1. I don't think Drake May will start this season at the very beginning of his rookie campaign. I just don't see that happening. I think the Patriots, as we saw over the weekend at rookie minicamp, they are going to play this thing slowly. They are taking a lot of time and going to invest lots of resources into Drake May's development, which is precisely what they should be doing. I don't think May will be deemed ready by week 1. If he is, that's a great sign. We'll talk about it then. But if I'm looking at this roster right now and I'm looking at the quarterback position, I am banking on Jacoby Brissett being your starting quarterback week 1 of this season. That's what I would anticipate. He brings experience. He is a very good leader. He's beloved as a teammate. And when we talk about experience, I'm not just talking about his experience in the NFL. I'm talking about his experience with Alex Van Pelt, his experience with running this kind of offense that the Patriots will now run. He understands when he goes out there, week 1, what is expected of him, and he understands most of the playbook. I would imagine that he understands most of the verbiage, so he has a lot of this stuff down. He's ahead of the curve, unlike Drake May, Joe Milton, and even Bailey Zappi, because Brissett has been here before. He's worked with this coach before, so he understands. He understands what he's going to see a lot quicker. So with that experience with Van Pelt, his experience in the NFL, the fact that he is a very good leader coming off of a 4-win season, I would anticipate Brissett being the guy as QB1 week 1. Drake May, I do think, will most likely be QB2. I don't think the Patriots would slide him in as the emergency quarterback. I just have the feeling that they'd be concerned with the perception of that, the reaction to that, and I believe they will get Drake May to a point before this season kicks off that he would be trusted, if need be, to get into a game, play some snaps, do what he's got to do, and get out of that game if Brissett were to get hurt, for example. So I think you'll see Brissett as QB1, Drake May as QB2. The interesting part of this, really, because I don't think many people would be surprised by that, the interesting part is QB3. Who's going to be that guy? If Drake May is going to be QB2 and you've got Brissett as QB1, is it going to be Bailey Zappi or Joe Milton as that emergency quarterback, as that third quarterback? I do think the Patriots end up having 3 quarterbacks on their active roster. In my guess, my educated guess here, looking at all of the circumstances, Bailey Zappi would likely be your QB3. If the season started next week, I think you've got Brissett, May, and then Zappi. Why Zappi over Milton? Again, you look at the experience angle. Joe Milton, we know, is very raw. He's even more raw than Drake May is. I don't think the Patriots would entertain the idea of having Joe Milton on an active roster really at any point this season. I think they're going to try to put him on the practice squad. I think they will be able to put him on the practice squad because he has a lot to work on. And I would expect Zappi to be that third quarterback. You want somebody who you can trust. You want somebody who can do the very basic things out there, and Zappi can do that. Milton still has some issues with that. And I also believe that it helps this whole Drake May versus Joe Milton fakakta debate that might happen down the road by the casuals. I think it kind of slows the roll on that if you put Milton on the practice squad, because then we know he's not even close. He's not even close to being a starting quarterback in the league. So I think you'll have Brissett, May, and Zappi, and then you have Milton on the practice squad as soon as they realize or acknowledge, that's a better word, as soon as they acknowledge that Milton is developing and they believe that he is actually responsible out there on the field and won't be a complete disaster, I could see them move on from Zappi very quickly. But they're not going to force Milton on the field. If you have Milton as your third quarterback, you risk the danger of throwing him out there way too soon, getting him exposed, and now he might never develop the way you want him to develop. So I think they'll play it very slowly with Joe Milton. He'll be on the practice squad, and your top 3 quarterbacks will be Brissett, May, and Zappi to at least start the season. And that by no means, by the way, is me endorsing Bailey Zappi. I'm not a believer in Bailey Zappi. And obviously the rest of the league, not really believers in Zappi, because when he was cut last year, he wasn't claimed by a single team. It's just the experience factor, the guy that you're going to trust early on in this season. If he's your emergency quarterback, you feel like you're in better hands on an emergency basis with Zappi right now in this moment than you are with Milton. Milton is way too shaky. So I think you'll see Brissett, May, and Zappi as your top 3 quarterbacks to start this season. Milton to the practice squad. All right, that's the quarterback position. Before we talk about more of the Patriots' offensive depth chart, I want to remind you that this show is brought to you by Warzone Paintball and Airsoft, our friends in North Kingston, Rhode Island. Don't forget to swing by there if you enjoy paintball or airsoft. They have both versions of games for even younger people, ages 6+. Just show up, jeans, good shoes, long sleeve shirt. They will take care of the rest. They have a tremendous staff. 4.9 as their rating online, which is just tremendous. How many places are rated 4.9 stars nowadays? The answer is not many. Warzone Paintball and Airsoft. If you enjoy paintball, if you enjoy airsoft, if you want to try it for the first time with a group of friends, they've got more than 30 acres of land. Tremendous spot. North Kingston. Give them a call. 401-228-6366. That's 401-228-6366. Tell them the Nick Cattle Show sent you. All right. So there's your quarterback spot. That's what I think is going to happen to at least begin this year. Brissett, May, Zappi, Milton to the practice squad. Running back to me is pretty easy. I don't think there's any way on God's green earth, aside from injury, that Ramondre Stevenson is not your number 1 back this year. He's your lead back. He's going to get the most touches. He's going to be the guy at the very tippity top of the depth chart. Stevenson will be your number one running back. Number two is easy as well. Antonio Gibson will be that guy. I'd be shocked if Gibson is not your running back too. He'll play on third downs. He'll get some first and second down action as well. A good receiver out of the backfield. He also lines up in the slot. He can even get funky and line up on the outside from time to time. He's a former wide receiver. So I think you see Gibson, who holds his water when it comes to pass protection. I think you'll see Gibson as running back two. He'll be your third down guy, but occasionally he'll get some early down action as well. The interesting part to running back is depth or the lack thereof. We thought the Patriots might draft a running back. We thought they might sign a veteran running back. They did neither of those things. So right now, you have Stevenson and Gibson as your 1 and 2, and then you look at running back 3, and it's a fist fight between Deshaun Fenwick and Kevin Harris. Now, I wouldn't be surprised if Fenwick makes this team. I'm not guaranteeing it, but I would not be surprised if Fenwick wins the job on the active roster as this third running back for this team this year, because Alonzo Highsmith has a great reputation of finding running back talent. So I think Fenwick is somebody that you look at who could really, slide his way onto this active roster, even though right now in May, not many people would even know who this guy is. I think the reputation of Alonzo Highsmith speaks for itself. He played the position for many years. He was highly drafted at that position. He has a track record, had a track record with Green Bay of finding guys as UDFAs, mid to late round picks. So I think when you look at the running back room, I wouldn't be surprised at all if Fenwick leapfrogs Harris and ends up being running back 3. They also just brought in Terrell Jennings, somebody we have to keep an eye on. He was somebody who was not drafted, obviously, was brought in to have a tryout at rookie minicamp last weekend, and the Patriots signed him. So he is part of the 90-man roster. So I'd look at Fenwick, I'd look at Jennings. One of those guys might actually crack the active roster by week 1. Would not be surprised by that. I also wouldn't be surprised if the Patriots continue to look on the market for running back help. Again, you get that June 1st cut date. You could see a number of running backs get cut loose by June 1st or shortly thereafter, and you're still before mandatory minicamp at that point, a couple weeks away. So I could see the Patriots scouring the waiver wire and claiming a running back, signing a veteran running back that ends up becoming available. I could absolutely see that. No doubt about it. So keep your eye on the veteran running back market, because I think it would make a lot of sense for the Patriots. If they're not won over by Fenwick or Jennings, it would make a lot of sense for them to go seek out a veteran running back. All right, let's jump to a super chat. Don't forget, by the way, to like and subscribe and throw your comment in here. Of course, YouTube channel, that's how we beat the algorithm. You give us that thumbs up. Every single like means the world. We build the community. So don't forget to give us that like. Don't forget to subscribe. And don't forget to rate and review if you're listening on Spotify and Apple Pods. And if you're on Spotify and Apple Pods, you can always just mosey on over to the YouTube channel to give us that thumbs up for a split second. It's all it takes. Split second, give us that thumbs up. Also subscribe. You can get notified when we go live. All right. Ryan Smith, $5 super chat jumps in. Been a day one listener. Love your approach and nuance covering this team. Does 100% of the super chat go to you, or does YouTube take a cut? Keep crushing it. YouTube takes a cut. YouTube takes a cut. It depends on how much is, I would say, contributed to the program. But yes, YouTube absolutely takes a cut. I do not get all of that money. With that said, that's why I started the Patreon, right? It's one of the reasons why I started a Patreon page with exclusive content, which reminds me I'm going to drop a Patreon podcast today, later on for those members. It's patreon.com/Nick Cattle, CATTLES. It's $5 a month, $1.25 a week. So YouTube takes a cut. Somebody said I should throw up a PayPal, and I probably should do that, but I just always forget. So people could contribute financially if they'd like to, and I would get all of that money, or the vast majority of that money. But yes, YouTube takes a cut, but I appreciate the super chat and the question. All right, wide receiver. This is fun. Wide receiver room. Ton of wide receivers. I think the Patriots have 11 or 12 wide receivers right now on this roster, on this 90-man. And when you look at wide receiver, I think one guy immediately that we know is going to be on this team, that is going to play every single week as long as he stays healthy, that is going to get a decent amount of touches is Pop Douglas. Pop Douglas will play. He will play a significant amount of snaps. Throw him in the slot. That's done. So Pop, he's there. When you look at the Z is interesting. Ja'Lynn Polk can play the Z. You also have Kendrick Bourne, who can play the Z. KJ Osborne can play the Z. Juju Smith-Schuster can play the Z. A lot of guys in this wide receiver room can play the Z position, which is the guy that is not the outside position, right? The very outside wide receiver, the X. If you go 3 wide receiver by 1 wide receiver, the X would be the 1 in that equation. When you look at the Z receiver, that's really your second receiver, right? Not the slot, not the X, kind of in the middle right there, and can run a bunch of different routes. So when you look at the Z receiver right now, if the season was to begin within the next week, I think Ja'Lynn Polk is your starting Z. I think Polk gets that assignment. He starts there. And I think KJ Osborne is your starting X week 1. So again, remember, this is week 1. I'm not telling you what's going to happen by week 5, 6, or 7. Week 1, I think you see Pop Douglas in the slot, Ja'Lynn Polk as your Z, KJ Osborne as your X. So what happens with Kendrick Bourne? If I were to give you a guess, and again, these are somewhat educated guesses looking at the roster, thinking about it, I would put Kendrick Bourne on the IR early on, right? I'd put him, I'd stash him there for a few weeks. I'd give him some extra time to get ready physically. Coming off of the ACL, I would give Kendrick Bourne a few weeks to get ready, some extra time to get it moving. And then when you've got to make a move, you've got to make a move down the road, right? That's what I think they will do. I think they will be patient with Bourne. They understand that 2024, of course, it matters and they want to win games, but really this is the big picture. That's why they're not going to rush Drake May. I don't think they're going to rush Kendrick Bourne back. I think they will take their time. He'll start the season on the IR, and they will take those few weeks, and they will throw Ja'Lynn Polk out there. They'll get his feet wet at the Z position, and when Bourne is ready to come off of that IR, that's when I think, okay, now you can move Bourne into the Z. You can move Polk into the Z. You can alternate snaps with those guys. You can go 4 wide. You can play, different guys at the slot if need be. A lot of different things you can do. You can play Polk at the X while you play Kendrick Bourne at the Z and Pop Douglas in the slot. A lot of different things that you can do. But I think Kendrick Bourne starts this season on the IR and they take their time. I think when you look at Javon Baker, he will be active. He will be on those game day rosters on Sundays. I don't know how much he's going to play right off the bat, but I do think he will be on the active roster week 1. I think he gives them an element that they don't have right now, and that is that primary, legitimate outside receiver that can beat the one-on-one coverage and can do different things. So if I were to look at this wide receiver room and give you an educated guess as to who starts week 1 or who plays week 1, I think you've got Pop Douglas in the slot. You've got Polk at the Z. You've got Osborne playing the X. Kendrick Bourne is getting stashed for a few more weeks to make sure he comes off of that ACL injury just fine. Baker is active. And then you have a bloodbath. And you have guys battle it out. Juju Smith-Schuster, if you don't want to cut him, and by the way, if you cut him, I wouldn't lose sleep over it. But if you want to see if he's got any juice left, is he feeling better this year than he was last year? If you want to give him a shot, you don't have to cut him before mandatory minicamp. You can cut him at any point. So if you want to have a competition, and I think this team is all about competition this preseason, you have Juju versus Tyquan Thornton versus Jalen Reagor versus Kayshon Boutte. I think those four guys will battle it out. You've got Pop, you've got Polk, you've got Osborne, you've got Baker. Those four guys, I believe, week one will be on the active roster. Bourne is stashed. That fifth wide receiver spot, who wants that fifth wide receiver spot? It'll come down to Thornton, Juju, Reagor, and Boutte. And you have those guys battle it out at camp, and best man wins. Simple as that. That's how I think the wide receiver room shapes up. Tight end's easy. Hunter Henry's your tight end 1. Austin Hooper is your tight end 2. What's really difficult, though, is when you get to tight end 3. Is Jaheim Bell going to make this team? Does he make this team out of camp? And what's interesting about this is Jaheim Bell is somebody who fits this Alex Van Pelt offense very well. He can make plays out of the flat. He's very good with yak. He can beat you down the seam. So when you look at a prototypical third tight end, if you want that receiving tight end, Jaheim Bell is a fantastic fit within this offense. I could easily see him make this team out of camp. However, if you want somebody who is more of a blocking presence, if Van Pelt and Mayo and company, they look at this team and they say, we're going to start this season by running the football a ton, then I think you could see Wilcox make this team. Mitchell Wilcox would be that, kind of old school blocking tight end as your third tight end. That's the way you could roll with it. You still have LaMichael Petway. I don't think he makes the team. Jacob Warren is an interesting name. He was brought in for a tryout. He's somebody that's very interesting. We'll see how that rest of the tight end room comes together. If I were a guessing man, I would say that you have Hunter, Hooper, and Bell as your tight ends. I think Bell makes a team coming out of camp because of what he can do offensively. He's an explosive guy at that position. You can move him around a little bit. So my betting guess right now would be Henry number 1, Hooper number 2, Jaheim Bell number 3 at the tight end spot. Justin, TF Patriot, sends a super chat. Thank you, Justin. RIP Foxborough flu. Hopefully. Well, it depends. Depends who we're talking about. Some players, you want them to have the Foxborough flu. Others, you don't. But I think what we'll see, Justin, and Gerard Mayo has said this, and Wolf has said this, they're going to play their young guys. They're going to play their young guys much more than they have played their young guys before. I don't think you're going to see a situation where, Pop Douglas fumbles against Miami, and for the next 3 or 4 weeks, he's pretty much forgotten. I don't think you're going to see that. I think this team is going to play their young guys. They're going to allow those young guys to get through those errors, to get through those mistakes, and develop. I think you'll see more of that from this team this year. Appreciate your super chat as always. Again, don't forget to give us that like, comment, subscribe, rate, and review. Offensive line, week 1. Here's what I'm thinking. Ready? I think your left tackle will be Chuks Okorafor. I'm leaning towards the veteran. Now, of course, we can look at Caden Wallace as a possibility. We could look at Calvin Anderson as a possibility. You've got Lowe. You've got Wheatley. They have a bunch of dudes on this team that have tackle by their name. If I were to be a betting man, I'm putting my money on Okorafor. The Patriots went out very quickly when the season was over and signed Okorafor. And it's rather obvious that they believe that he can play left tackle. I think he will get every single opportunity to prove them right. So I think Okorafor, if I was starting this season next week, Okorafor is your left tackle. Granted, we all know that Okorafor might need some help on the left side. We get it. But given the options, I think Okorafor will be your guy week 1 at left tackle. Left guard is also interesting. I don't think Cole Strange will be ready from a physical standpoint. I'm not sure they'll roll with a rookie at left guard because of a core four being new to the left side at the NFL level, I'm going to lean towards Leverett. Now, he could be cut before this season begins, but I'm going to go with the veteran experience. I'm going to go with the guy who they also brought in via free agency. I think you have a core four at left tackle, and then at left guard, I think you'll have Nick Leverett be that guy, and we'll see what happens with Cole Strange. Center's easy. David Andrews, he's your guy. Stay healthy. Watch out for those concussions. Right guard is easy, I think. Sidy Sow. Sidy Sow will be your right guard week 1, and right tackle is easy. That will be Mike Onwenu. So week 1, here is what I think we will see. Here is your starting Patriots offense if everybody stays healthy week 1. Jacoby Brissett at quarterback. Ramondre Stevenson, running back. You have Pop Douglas in the slot. You have Ja'Lynn Polk at the Z. You have KJ Osborne playing at X receiver. Tight end. You have Hunter Henry as your number 1 guy. When you go 2 tight end sets, I think you'll see Austin Hooper, for the most part, out there with Henry. Sprinkle in a little Jaheim Bell. Your offensive line looks like this from left to right. Chukwuekwuemeka 4 at left tackle. Nick Leverett, left guard. David Andrews, center. Sidy Sow, right guard. Mike Onwenu, right tackle. That, to me, is this offense week 1. Let's move on to Ja'Lynn Polk. Some interesting stuff was said by a former NFL GM. Before we get to the Bruins, we will get to the Bruins win last night down in Florida. But Mike Giardi at Boston Sports Journal transcribed former general manager Randy Mueller, and he spoke on the Football GM pod. And here's what Randy said, talking about Polk. Quote, he's a professional receiver already. He's going to run all the routes. He's going to run with details beyond most college kids with details of playing that position. I think he plays like a veteran receiver already. I agree. If Polk is not playing early on this season, it's a disappointment. He seems very, very pro-ready. And the idea of how the Patriots approached the draft, which was the big swing on the projection of Drake May in the first round, understanding that May would not be that guy, most likely, right away for this team. I think they came back in that second round. We talked about it. We talked about it at that time. They came back in the second round, and they went safe. They went safe with Ja'Lynn Polk because they believe that Polk is going to be ready week 1. I think it would be a disappointment if he's healthy and he's not out there playing a good amount of snaps week 1. Here's more of what Mueller said to the Football GM pod. Quote, he'll be a hard guy to cover only because he's going to catch everything. Covering him is one thing, but doing something about it is another thing. He catches the ball when covered really good, which I think sometimes is a skill set that doesn't get enough run at the NFL level. I am not calling Ja'Lynn Polk DeAndre Hopkins. Nobody watching or listening to this podcast should twist my words. I'll say it again. Ja'Lynn Polk is not DeAndre Hopkins. However, the skill set that is the most mesmerizing for DeAndre Hopkins is his ability to catch pretty much anything. You put it within his catch radius, the dude is going to catch the football. Like 98% of the time. He's got incredible hands. And Polk is similar. Polk is somebody that if you get the football within his catch radius, he's going to catch that football. So he's got that D-hop kind of skill when it comes to the mitts. And Taylor Kiles, who does a great job for CLNS, I'm sure many of you follow him and know of him. If you don't, check him out on Twitter. Taylor had a 4-minute video yesterday or the day before about Polk. And it was just 4 minutes of Ja'Lynn Polk making contested catches, making difficult catches. He's got tremendous hands. He's got tremendous hands downfield. So I agree with Mueller in how he looks at Ja'Lynn Polk and the skill set. All right, we got a couple more comments about Ja'Lynn Polk. Don't forget to comment yourself on this video And also subscribe. Try to hit 3,500 subscribers. We're getting slowly there. Every single like, every single subscription means the world to this podcast, to this operation. So don't forget to like, comment, and subscribe. If you're listening on Spotify, Apple Pods, rate and review. And I told you about the Patreon a little bit earlier. Before I get to a couple more comments on Ja'Lynn Polk, let's go to Jeff. Jeff jumps in with a super chat. Any word on the undrafted rookie left tackle they invited to rookie camp? We spent a little bit of time talking about the undrafted guys, the tryout guys that they brought in. Now, as far as the undrafted rookie left tackle that was invited, are you talking about the UDFA? If you are talking about the UDFA, which I would imagine you are, not a whole lot on him. I'm trying to remember what his name is. I'll pull this up in a minute. I know he's a massive human. It seems to me, I think you're talking about Zuri Henry. Zuri Henry, he was not at rookie minicamp from what I read. People did not see him. Is it an injury issue? I don't know. We'll have to keep an eye on it. But Zuri Henry is a very, very massive human, and that's all I know about him. I can't sit here and give you a scouting report. I apologize, Jeff, but I know at rookie minicamp he wasn't really spotted. So again, could be an injury thing, could be something else. We don't know, but I have not heard much about him whatsoever. Let's go to Choo Choo. Choo Choo just says hello. Hello, Choo Choo. Appreciate the super chat as always. Helping out the program. Always much appreciated. And by the way, the offensive lineman that was the invite for tryout purposes at the rookie minicamp, he was Ryan Johnson. He was signed, and he is somebody who's played at two different colleges. He played at Duquesne. He played at Youngstown State. He's 6'2", 306. He started all 13 games last year at Youngstown State. So that's the guard that they brought in. That was the invite. But again, Henry was not seen during rookie minicamp, so who knows what's going on with him. All right, let's get to a couple more comments from Randy Mueller, former NFL GM. He was on the Football GM podcast, talking about Ja'Lynn Polk. Here's more from him on Polk. Quote, I think they need a little bit of cultural toughness, a little bit of what Polk is all about now. That, to me, was a cool pick because I think he brings with him a little bit of that position that the Patriots lack, and that position lacks at the NFL level. So culture. We've heard this. Ja'Lynn Polk, huge with the culture. And it seems like he and Drake May have really popped. Pratik Ghosh asks, when's the schedule coming out? The schedule is coming out later tonight. I gave you a mea culpa at the beginning of this podcast. I bit into an aggregate tweet yesterday saying that the schedule would be released this morning at some point. That was not true. That was wrong information. That person deleted the tweet. So it will be out tonight, 8 p.m. But usually the way this works is throughout the day, there will be leaks. And there has already been a leak about a Patriots game that we'll get to in a minute. But to just wrap up the Ja'Lynn Polk thoughts, I think they're going to struggle, but I like the pick, Mueller said. I think in the long run, Ja'Lynn Polk will be a really good player for the Patriots and to get that kind of quality where they did. Pats, again, the way they approached the draft, first round, big swing, second round, a little bit more safe with Polk. And I just think it's one of those situations where I would be shocked if Polk was a complete miss. I'm not telling you that Polk will end up a wide receiver one. I don't think he will be, but I would be stunned if Polk is not contributing to this football team this season and doing some really fun things out there. I think he's NFL ready. I think he has NFL maturity. He's an NFL quarterback, any quarterback's best friend with those hands. I would be very surprised if Polk is not contributing to this football team early in his rookie year. And I would be just knocked over if he's a complete miss. One more note. Speaking of the schedule, we found out this morning that the Patriots are going to be playing at Wembley. They'll be playing at Wembley in London. on October 20th. So Sunday, October 20th, the Patriots will be playing in Wembley, and that game will be against the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Jaguars, Patriots, Wembley Stadium, happening on October 20th. That is week 7. So I do wonder, part of me wonders, with the Patriots traveling to London week 7, October 20th, does that tell us that the bye week could be week 6 or week 8? I would not be surprised if the bye week is either week 6 or week 8. And I definitely would not be surprised if it was week 8. So right after that trip to London, you have the bye week to kind of get your wits about you. So that's the one game that we do know. The one game we do know is going to be at Wembley, Jacksonville Jaguars. And the good thing about it is that that game is not going to take away a home game. That's the good news. That game is a Jacksonville home game. So one of the Patriots away games this year will be at Wembley Stadium against the Jaguars, but they do not lose any home games from their schedule that will be released later tonight and will certainly be leaked within the next several hours. But I anticipate that bye week likely being week 8 after that London trip. All right, let's get to some Bruins quickly. Got to give them some love. 2-1 win in Florida last night. Jeremy Swayman continues to be excellent. He had a massive second period. A massive second period from Swayman. He had the game-sealing save versus Reinhart with like 11 seconds left in the game. Tremendous stick save. Very aggressive. Came out of the crease. Attacked Reinhart almost. And made an incredible save. He's just been nails. He's been nails all postseason. They don't beat Toronto if it's not for Swayman. They're not playing a game 6 Friday night at the Garden if it's not for Swayman. He had 10 saves in the third period alone, 28 saves on 29 shots on goal. Give him the extension. I've said this before. Give Jeremy Swayman the extension right now. He should be signing a contract extension while he's flying back here to Boston from Florida. He's been that unbelievable this postseason. Sign him to an extension, trade Allmark in the offseason. You try to trade Allmark at the trading deadline. Trade Allmark in the offseason. Of course, he's got that no movement clause. Hopefully, he's more open-minded to moving in the offseason. You go 1 year left on that deal. So maybe the team that trades for him will give him a little bit of a long-term security with some Schkarol, and that will make it easier for him to say yes to a deal. But sign Swayman right now. Get the deal done. Stop hesitating. You had the arbitration last year. He was rubbed the wrong way because of the arbitration. Get an extension done. This guy has shown me enough in this postseason that he gets it. Calm, cool, collected, in control almost every single second out there on the ice during this postseason. He's been fantastic. McAvoy. I have been ripping Charlie McAvoy and justifiably ripping Charlie McAvoy. He has not been good whatsoever this postseason. However, he had his best game of the postseason last night. And if you're going to have your best game of the postseason, it might as well be a must-win Game 5 on the road. McAvoy was really good. He had an icing, a bad, unnecessary icing because he failed to gain the red line. But McAvoy was really good last night. Had a goal, had an assist, 6 shots, 4 shot blocks. I mean, he's just been incredible. 3 hits, played over 23 minutes on the ice, and he had 2 to 3 huge plays. He had 2 to 3 huge plays in the defensive zone over the final 90 seconds while Florida had an empty net. He had that play against the boards, right? Up along the boards where he's kind of protecting. He's protecting the puck. And then at the last second, he dives and gets his stick on the puck. He made 2 or 3 great plays in his own zone in the final 90 seconds that helped seal that game last night. So shout out to Charlie McAvoy, who stepped up with his best playoff game of this postseason last night when his team desperately needed it. I thought the Bruins were excellent in the first period. They got 12 shots on net, which is just outrageous. They've gone 2 periods combined without 12 shots on net. Last night, they came out. They came out crisp. They came out with urgency. 12 shots on net. They were clean out of their own zone, which they weren't necessarily in the second or third period consistently, but they were consistently clean out of their own zone, which was great to see. There wasn't much hesitation to their game. So I thought they played with some freedom. I thought they were really, really good in the first period. The penalty kill was not perfect. I mean, technically it was because they were 4 for 4 on kills. But as far as the, I thought the performance of the penalty kill, it wasn't perfect. They gave up some chances, but it was much, much better than what it's been over the past few games against Florida. Their penalty kill has been atrocious against the Panthers in this series. Last night, they stepped up 4 for 4 on kills. They had a huge, gigantic third period kill after that too many men on the ice. And we got to stop at the too many men on the ice. The 6th time in this postseason that the Bruins had too many men on the ice. I would blame also Charlie Coyle for that. Coyle was good last night, but he got really, really sloppy and careless in the neutral zone. And instead of dumping the puck, he's trying to make a play. He's trying to make an entry all on his own. He turns the puck over. Florida gets possession. Puck gets to the Boston bench. Now you're dealing with 6 men on the ice. Obviously, that's too many men on the ice. So you get that too many men on the ice penalty. If Coyle dumps it, then you might not have as much of an issue there. But he's a little careless in the neutral zone and turns it over, and then the circus begins. Game 6, Friday night, TD Garden. I think Brad Marchand will be back. He traveled with the team down to Florida. He took part in the morning skate before Game 5. I think Marchand will be back. Apparently, he gave the team a pregame speech last night. Seemed to work the way they came out in that first period. So I think you have Marchand back on Friday in front of a home crowd that is buzzing. And here's the thing. All the pressure, to me, all the pressure is now on Florida. They don't want to go back home for a Game 7. They did not want to get back on that plane and fly to Boston to play on Friday night. They definitely don't want a Game 7. If there's a Game 7, you have the Bruins now winning back-to-back games, all the momentum in the world, and their confidence sky high. So all of the pressure on Friday night is on Florida. As soon as the Bruins went down 3-1, pretty much everybody was saying the series was over. Bruins playing like there's nothing to lose. And it's true. There's nothing to lose at this point. Go out swinging. So all of that pressure is on Florida Friday night. I'll be fascinated to see how they handle that. Let's go to Trenton, my man Trenton. My goodness, with a $20 super chat. Can't say enough about that, my man. I appreciate you. I appreciate your contribution to the show. Great coverage. Thank you. Polk will not be another N'Keal Harry, knock on wood. Which 5th wide receiver do you think could contribute the most to the offense? My pick is Thornton. I would agree with that. I would agree with Tyquan Thornton. And look, I'm not telling you that Thornton's even going to make the team. But based off of what we saw last year, Juju looks physically washed. Now, hopefully he found some stem cell research and injections in some foreign land, and he looks like a different guy when he's on the field at mandatory minicamp, and hopefully he's looking spry and moving well. But based off of what we saw last year, Juju looks cashed. So if I were a betting man right now, I'd say Juju is out of the mix. Jalen Reagor, I think, is going to be out of the mix. Now, special teams, he can help, but Tyquan Thornton has the speed, just like Reagor has. Thornton is younger. You invested a second-round pick into Thornton, so you'd like to see some ROI with Thornton more than you would with Reagor. You might even be able to move Reagor to the practice squad, frankly, with how much he's moved around the league. And Kayshon Boutte, we'll see. There were some red flags with Boutte coming out of LSU, remember? There were questions about his maturity. Then he had the gambling situation that popped up. Is he going to face some kind of suspension from the NFL? What's going on with that? When he played last year, he showed a lack of awareness at times. Let's not forget week 1 when he couldn't get his feet in bounds, not once but twice. So I would lean towards Tyquan Thornton. I'm not super confident, but if I'm looking at wide receiver 5 week 1, I lean towards Thornton over Juju, Rager, and Booty. That's what I think. Because I don't know how you could believe that Juju's going to be healthy. And Rager is Rager. You know what you have there. And Booty's the wild card, but with some questions. Trenton, again, I can't say enough for the $20 super chat. Those kinds of super chats, they just like knock me over. To invest $20 of your hard-earned money on this podcast, on this product, means a lot. So I appreciate you, man. Hope you have a fantastic hump day. All right, that'll do it for today. Tomorrow, I promise, schedule talk tomorrow. We'll go through it. We'll look at the bye week. We'll look at the quarterbacks they're facing. We'll look at some of the back-to-backs that might be more difficult than others. We'll look at the travel. I expect the Patriots to play San Francisco and Arizona in back-to-back weeks. They've asked the league if they could allow that to happen. So I think we have a back-to-back out on the West Coast. We know that week 7 will be in London, 9:30 a.m. local time against Jacksonville. I would think that the bye week will be week 8. So that's my guess. Those are my guesses. You'll have Arizona, San Francisco out on the West Coast back-to-back weeks. We know London is week 7. I think we've got the bye coming up week 8. Outside of that, we'll see how it falls. We'll talk about it all tomorrow at 11 a.m. YouTube, Spotify, Apple Pods. Don't forget to like, subscribe, comment, rate, and review. All of it helps. Back tomorrow. Thank you. Appreciate you. It's the Nick Cattle Show.